Hello students, today we are going to learn in detail about non-odontogenic cyst. Okay, so in part 1 and part 2 we learned about odontogenic cyst. So coming to the third portion, we are learning about non-odontogenic cyst. Okay, just like odontogenic cyst, the non-odontogenic cyst are also divided into developmental type. Okay, so in the developmental itself, we can again divide them into intra-osseous type of developmental odontogenic cyst. Okay, non-odontogenic cyst and extra-osseous type of developmental non-odontogenic cyst. So it means what? Intra-osseous means the cyst is within the bone. Okay, so extra-osseous means it is outside the bone. It is a soft tissue cyst. Okay, so just note down which are they. Okay, so under the intra-osseous non-odontogenic one, we have nasopalatine duct cyst, median palatal cyst, globulomaxillary cyst and median mandibular cyst. And coming on to extra-osseous variety, we have palatal cyst of newborn. Okay, clear? Then the nasolabial cyst, thyroglossal duct cyst, or lymphoepithelial cyst, epidermoid cyst and dermoid cyst. Okay, I hope it's clear. So note down which are intra-osseous and which are extra-osseous, because the clue in the questions, okay, so the various clues in the MCQ question, so maybe it will be a descriptive question kind, but there are some key points within the question. So one of the key point will be it is an intra-osseous or it is an extra-osseous cyst. So within that itself we'll be able to exclude or we'll be able to eliminate few of the options given to us. Okay, clear? So note down that point. Coming on to intra-osseous developmental non-odontogenic cyst. In the intra-osseous developmental non-odontogenic variety, the first one, either the one which is within the bone, the first one we are learning is nasopalatine duct cyst or incisive canal cyst or median anterior maxillary cyst. So I have given all these terms in red ink, okay, because any of these terms can be given in the options. Okay, so it all refers to the same cyst. The cyst can be nasopalatine duct cyst, can also be called as incisive canal cyst because it is near to the incisive canal. Okay, it can also be called as a median anterior maxillary cyst because it is present in the midline. Okay, that is why it is called median, and it is present in the anterior region exclusively in the maxilla, so it can also be called as median anterior maxillary cyst. So now look into the image. Okay, so in the image, the first arrow mark I am telling the incisive canal. Okay, the arrow mark points towards the incisive canal. So the cyst is lying close to the incisive canal. Because of that, the cyst is also called as incisive canal cyst. Clear? Similarly, look into the second picture. It is similar to that of differential diagnosis with median palatal cyst. Okay, but median palatal cyst is posterior to incisive canal. So that is the major difference between nasopalatine duct cyst and median palatal cyst. Okay, so in the differential diagnosis between these two lesions, note down what is the difference between nasopalatine duct cyst and median palatal cyst. Median palatal cyst is little more posterior to the incisive canal. Okay, that image is showing actually the nasopalatine duct cyst, but if it comes to median palatal cyst, it will be little more posterior. Okay, it will be more clear in the coming images. So coming on to in detail about nasopalatine duct cyst, it is the most common non-odontogenic cyst. Among the non-odontogenic variety, if you take intra-osseous, extra-osseous together, the most common type of non-odontogenic type of cyst is nasopalatine duct cyst. Clear? So that point is very important. It is seen in the midline anterior maxilla. Everybody knows about it. Now the origin is mainly from the remnants of nasopalatine duct. Okay, the origin is from the remnants of nasopalatine duct. Because of that reason, the cyst is called as a nasopalatine duct cyst. Clear to everyone? Now, the associated teeth. Most of the times, the associated anterior maxillary tooth will be devitalized. Okay, so there can be a devitalization of the associated tooth. Okay, even the tooth can be displaced also. Clear? The anterior maxilla, the central incisors can be a non-vital one or it can be a displaced ones because of the expansion of the intra-bony expansion of the cyst. There can be a displacement in the tooth itself. Okay, clear? So this is the major features of nasopalatine duct cyst, and the nasopalatine duct cyst is often differentiated with median palatal cyst. What is the difference between these two? Nasopalatine duct cyst is relatively closer to incisive canal, whereas median palatal cyst is posterior, little more posterior to the incisive canal. Coming on to median palatal cyst, I told you median palatal cyst is lying below. Okay, lying posterior to the nasopalatine cyst, okay, incisive canal cyst. I told you just now. So that picture is very clear in this image. Okay, so see in that image, first you can see in the incisive canal the nasopalatine duct cyst, and posterior to it lies the median parietal cyst. So this is how the differential diagnosis comes. Both of them are intra-osseous only, okay, within the bone only. So the position is different in case of both of them. Okay, now in case of median palatal cyst, the why it is happening? Because of the entrapment of epithelium along the line of fusion of palatal pros of maxilla. So during the development of the phase, okay, during the development of the phase, as the palatal shelves fuse together, the lateral shelves, both of them right and left, fuse together to form the palate, hard palate, there could be some entrapment of epithelium. Okay, because of this reason, there could be because of this, the epithelium can give rise to the cyst, the median palatal cyst. Clear? I hope it's very clear now. And it lies midline of the hard palate only between the lateral palatal process. Okay, clear. And an important point I have given in red ink. Note down that point. It is not associated to tooth. The previous one, the incisive canal cyst, was associated to the anterior central incisors. The tooth, associated tooth, can even be non-vital. I told you it can be a displacement of the tooth also. But here in this case, the tooth, the median palatal cyst, is not at all associated with tooth, as well as it is posterior to the incisive canal. Clear? So that is a major differential diagnosis between both. Okay, and radiographically, how does it appear? It appears as a well circumscribed. It is intrabony, so you can see radiolucent area in the radiograph. Clear? And it is mostly seen opposite to the premolar area, okay, bicuspid and the molar area, opposite to that. So in that image, I hope it's very clear the location. Coming on to the next intra-osseous variety, that is globulomaxillary cyst. Now look into that image. The image is very, very helpful in this particular case. Globulomaxillary cyst. Can you see that writings? The orange one, okay, the first image, note down. The first one, the orange label is median nasal process, isn't it? The second, the yellow portion, marked as maxillary process. Okay, so during the development, so that image is actually showing the development of the face. So during the development of the face, there is union between the median nasal process and the maxillary process. Okay, so when this union happens during this, at this junction, okay, the junction of globular portion of the median nasal process and the maxillary process, at this junction we have the development of globulomaxillary cyst. Is it clear now? Okay, I hope it's very clear the location. Now if you simulate with the radiograph below, that exact location comes between which region? Lateral incisor and the canine region. Okay, so most of the times the location of globulomaxillary cyst, or it is exclusively seen in this area between the roots of lateral incisor and the canine. Okay, how does it appear in the radiograph? It appears as a, look into the image, what is that picture? It's a inverted pear. Okay, it's a pear is a fruit, so it's similar to the inverted pear shape. Okay, so adjacent to that I have given the picture, exact picture of an inverted pear. So the same way you can see the appearance in the radiograph. So that is why the radiographically it appears as a inverted pear shaped radiolucency. So globulomaxillary cyst is seen in the junction of globular portion of median nasal process and the maxillary process. Okay, remember, relate and study with the picture. So that orange portion is the median nasal process and that yellow portion is the maxillary process. At the junction of union, you have the development of globulomaxillary cyst. Okay, so because of this region, this cyst can also be called as premaxilla maxillary cyst. Okay, globulomaxillary cyst can also be called as a premaxilla maxillary cyst. Clear? And it is seen in the radiograph as an inverted pear shape. Mostly the location is between the roots of lateral incisor and the canine region. Okay, and this causes what? Divergence of the roots of lateral incisor and the canine. I hope it's very clear in the radiograph. There is a divergence for the roots of lateral incisor and the canine. Clear? So this is how you should study globulomaxillary cyst. So these are the important points, MCQ oriented important points related to globulomaxillary cyst. Coming on to the last intraosseous developmental non-odontogenic cyst, that is median mandibular cyst. Okay, so from the term itself, look into the picture, the second picture, you look into the radiograph. Okay, so in that radiograph, can you see in the midline, okay, midline of the mandible, that is why it is called as median mandibular. The location is exactly in the midline of the mandible. Okay, so that is why the term is called as median mandibular cyst. Okay, and it is unilocular. Can you see a single circle? It is a single radiolucent area, a single circle. So it is well circumscribed radiolucency. It is unilocular, and the origin is what is important in MCQ viewpoint. It is originating from proliferation of epithelial remnants which are entrapped in the median mandibular fissure. So during the union of the mandible from the right and the left, during the union process, okay, there is some kind of epithelial remnants which are entrapped in that particular area. Okay, so this resulted in the formation of median mandibular cyst. Clear? So median mandibular cyst is exactly seen in the midline of the mandible. So in this particular section, we learned about intraosseous developmental non-odontogenic cyst. The first one we learned about nasopalatine duct cyst. Okay, maxilla exactly in the incisive canal region. Okay, the second one we learned about median palatal cyst posterior to the incisive canal cyst, and thirdly we learned about globulomaxillary cyst in the union of the medial nasal process and the maxillary process in the inverted pear shape, and lastly we learned about median mandibular cyst exactly in the midline of the mandible. Now next we are learning about extra-osseous variety developmental non-odontogenic cyst. Okay, so these cysts are seen in the soft tissue, not in the radiograph. Coming on to the first one, that is palatal cyst of newborn. So palatal cyst of the, so in the previous lecture I had taught you about Epstein pearls and Bond's nodules. So these palatal cyst of newborn are of two kinds. As I told you, I had already explained in the previous lecture, so I'm not explaining too much here. So these are Epstein pearls which are seen along the midline raphe. Okay, so we remember as pearl rod. And the second one is Bond nodules. Okay, they are seen along the junction between the hard palate and soft palate, that is in the bone junction. Remember the two, remember the mnemonics. Okay, pearl rod and bone junction. Relate and study with the picture. Now Epstein pearls are derived from entrapment of epithelial remnants along the line of fusion. That is why they are seen along the midline palate, palatal raphe. And Bond nodules are seen along the junction of hard palate and soft palate, and they are derived from the palatal salivary gland structures. Okay, so remember that point. They are derived from the palatal salivary gland structures. Coming on to next one, that is nasolabial cyst or nasoalveolar cyst or clestatid cyst. So this is the common term which we see in the MCQ options. Okay, clestatid cyst, because this term will confuse you. Okay, so clestatid cyst is the other term for nasolabial cyst. Now look into the first image. Can you see that globular process? Okay, globular process, okay, and lateral nasal process, that is that cream color marking. Okay, lateral nasal process, and lastly the maxillary process in the red color. So the junction between the lateral nasal process and maxillary process and the globular process, in that particular junction where I have shown the arrow mark, the red arrow mark, in that particular region you have the development of nasolabial cyst. So remember that fusion, junction of globular process, lateral nasal process and maxillary process, you have the nasolabial cyst because of the entrapment or proliferation of entrapped epithelial cells along the line of fusion. Clear? And how do they appear? They are extra-osseous. So they are not seen in the radiographs. They are extra-osseous. So in clinical picture I have given here because of that reason. In that clinically how it will be seen? They will be seen as swelling in the mucolabial fold as well as at the floor of the nose, being located near to the attachment of ala over the maxilla. Clear? And they are mostly seen in the women. So that picture is that of a woman. Clear? So nasolabial cyst will be 3 times commonly seen in women. So note that point. Okay, very important. And the location is very, very important. They are seen in the junction of globular process, lateral nasal process and maxillary process. And the extra-osseous, that is why I have given the clinical picture. Okay. Coming on to next one, that is thyroglossal duct cyst. So this cyst also comes under extra-osseous variety, non-odontogenic type. Okay, because of that it comes under this category. Okay, thyroglossal duct cyst, see the location, it is mostly seen in the midline of the neck. Okay, so it's a rare, benign, and they are seen in the midline area, midline neck mass area. Okay, and what is the important feature of thyroglossal duct cyst is that it moves with swallowing. Okay, it moves with swallowing. So if you have some food or if you swallow the saliva, you will see this movement. You will see the movement of the thyroglossal duct cyst. So it moves with swallowing, and it is seen in the midline of the neck region. And why? It is because a result from the dilation of a remnant at the site where the primitive thyroid was located. So during the development of thyroid, there was the primitive thyroid location is shown in the first arrow mark. Okay, second image, first arrow mark actually shows the primitive site of the thyroid, and second one is actually showing the current location of the thyroid. So there could be some there is descending of thyroid. So that arrow mark is actually showing the descending of thyroid from the primitive location to the current location. So there could be some remnants remaining still in the primitive location, in the first location. So because from these remnants there could be formation of this thyroglossal duct cyst. So that is the origin of thyroglossal duct cyst, if you explain. Okay, clear? So thyroglossal duct cyst is because of the resulting of dilation of some of the remnants remaining at the site where the primitive thyroid was supposed to be. Okay, and the thyroglossal duct cyst is exactly seen in the midline region, and it moves with swallowing. Okay, so remember these important points. Coming on to next important one, that is oral lymphoepithelial cyst. So the clinical picture, the first picture is showing a oral lymphoepithelial cyst. So it is actually a benign lymphoid aggregate or an accessory tonsil of the oral or the pharyngeal mucosa. So this is a clinical picture. It appears as a small whitish nodule in the area, in the pharyngeal region. You can see as a small white nodule. Okay, so it's actually the lymphoid. Okay, so what is the difference between the oral lymphoepithelial cyst and Wharton's tumor? Okay, in case of Wharton's tumor, you can see a double layered lining, a squamous epithelium, but in case of oral lymphoepithelial cyst, that will be absent. Okay, so this is the major difference between oral lymphoepithelial cyst and a Wharton's tumor. Most of the times it can be asked as a MCQ. Okay. Now coming to the end of this extra osseous variety of non-odontogenic developmental kind of non-odontogenic cyst, the last one is congenital mouth cyst. In congenital mouth cyst, we have epidermoid cyst. Okay, they are the simple variety. Okay, and the syndrome, they are connected with it, Gardner syndrome, basal cell nevus syndrome, and Pachyonychia congenita. So epidermoid cysts are actually seen in which are the syndromes? They are connected with epidermoid cysts are mostly seen in the syndromes like Gardner syndrome, basal cell nevus syndrome, and Pachyonychia congenita. And the second variety of congenital mouth cyst are the dermoid cyst. Okay, dermoid cyst. And the last one is the teratoid cyst. So teratoid means there is fusion of all the germ layers, ectoderm, endoderm, and mesoderm. So that is why they are called as teratoid or complex variety of cyst. Dermoid cyst means it will contain multiple sebaceous glands. Okay. And the first one, epidermoid cyst, means they are simple and they are because of implantation of some kind of epidermal elements and the cystic transformation. Clear? So, and the syndromes connected is very important. In that, Gardner syndrome is extremely important because Gardner syndrome features are very, very important. Gardner syndrome features you can remember as a small mnemonic. Remember as garden in forest. Okay, so the features of Gardner syndromes, remember as like this, garden in a forest. Okay, so what is F stands for? Familial. O stands for osseous. Okay, osseous or soft tissue tumors. RE stands for retinal epithelium hypertrophy, and last one ST, supernumerary teeth. So most of the times MCQ they ask supernumerary teeth are seen with syndromes. They are seen in Gardner syndrome. Okay, clear? Now the epidermoid cysts are also seen in Gardner syndrome. Clear? So these are the two important points you should connect and study with the Gardner syndrome. Gardner syndrome, garden in a forest. Remember that way. And F stands for familial adenomatoid polyposis. O stands for osseous or soft tissue tumors. RE stands for retinal epithelium hypertrophy, and ST stands for supernumerary teeth. So remember these 2 points. Gardner syndrome contains supernumerary tooth as well as epidermoid cyst. Clear? Now let me summarize the summary of non-odontogenic cyst. You should relate and study. When you relate and study, it will be extremely helpful in case of MCQ. Okay, so the first one, the first picture is actually showing you the non-odontogenic cyst. Okay, intraosseous variety. Non-odontogenic cyst, that too intraosseous variety. The first one, can you see the nasopalatine cyst? Okay, the first picture, nasopalatine cyst, it is seen in the incisive canal region. Okay, posterior to that, just behind, you can see the median palatal cyst. So that is why I told you, behind the nasopalatine cyst you can see the median palatal cyst. Okay, then thirdly, globulum maxillary cyst. Can you see? Globulum maxillary cyst is seen between the lateral incisor and the canine as a inverted pear shape. Can you see a extra osseous variety? In that picture itself, there is an extra osseous cyst given, nasolabial cyst. Nasolabial cyst is seen in the particular area. Okay, and it is a extra osseous soft tissue cyst. Now the second picture is showing you the median mandibular cyst. It is an intraosseous variety. It is seen exactly in the midline of the mandible. And the last picture tells you about the palatal cyst, the Epstein pulse and bone nodules. Remember all these things. Okay, clear? Now let's learn in detail about inflammatory kind of non-odontogenic cyst. So in this section we are learning about non-odontogenic cyst. In that, first we learned about the intraosseous and extraosseous varieties of non-odontogenic cyst, developmental kind. Now next we are going to learn about the inflammatory kind of non-odontogenic cyst. In that we are dividing into traumatic type and infectious type. So under traumatic variety, because of some kind of trauma, the cyst is occurring. So because of the salivary cyst, antral cyst, traumatic bone cyst and aneurysmal bone cyst come under the traumatic variety. And infectious cyst, the one which is included in it is parasitic cyst. So coming on to the first one, important MCQ is salivary cyst or mucocele. Okay, salivary cyst or mucocele. So mucocele as such is divided into two types: mucus retention type and mucus extravasation type. So what is the major difference between these two? When there is a retention, when there is no breakage in the salivary gland duct, there is retention because of some blockage or some kind of block in that particular ductal pathway. There could be retention of saliva in that particular area. Okay, because of that you have the development of the mucocele, then it is called as mucus retention cyst. But when there is extravasation, when there is a breakage in the ductal pathway, there could be outflow of the saliva which was supposed to be coming through that particular pathway. It is getting deviated to some other area. Okay, so that particular type of cyst which is originating is called as mucus extravasation cyst. Okay, and mucus extravasation cyst which is seen in the floor of the mouth is called as ranula. Mucus extravasation kind of cyst which is seen in the floor of the mouth is called as ranula. That is the first picture. Okay, first picture is showing you ranula, the cyst which is seen in the floor of the mouth. Okay, now the second picture is showing you the same ranula which is plunging through the mylohyoid muscle. It is plunging. Okay, it is penetrating through the mylohyoid muscle deep. Okay, and that is why it is called as plunging ranula. Okay, when it plunges or when it penetrates deep into the mylohyoid muscle, that is mainly above the hyoid bone, that is suprahyoid type. Okay, it is called as plunging ranula. Clear? So this mucocele or salivary cyst is the most common benign lesion of the salivary glands. Among the salivary, we'll be learning in detail in the salivary gland chapter. So the most common benign lesion of salivary glands is mucocele. Most of the times, mucocele is the most common benign lesion of salivary glands, mostly seen. And it is traumatic origin due to the rupture of salivary duct or SNI. And the commonest site of mucocele, where do you commonly see this? Commonly seen in the lower lip area. It is common site is lower lip area. Okay, and superficially the lesion is bluish in color, and the deep lesions will be mostly same color as the mucosa. And histologically, if you cut and open a mucocele under the microscope, what you can see flattened epithelial lining which is referred to as feeder ducts, you can see. Okay, and what is the treatment you give? You give a full excision. Most of the times ranulas or mucoceles are fully excised. Okay, and ranula, as I told you, it is seen in the floor of the mouth, and when it is mostly associated with submandibular and sublingual glands. Since it is in the floor of the mouth, it is associated with which two ducts? It is associated with submandibular and sublingual glands. Okay, and it is mostly seen on one side of the floor of the mouth, as it is shown in the first picture. Okay, and the treatment option for this is mostly marsupialization. Ranula is mostly we do marsupialization. Okay, that marsupialization means we cut open, we remove the mucocele, along with it we remove the some portion of the gland also. that is called as marsupialization. Clear? So salivary cyst, otherwise known as mucocele, is of two types: mucus extravasation and mucus retention type. And mucus extravasation type is seen in the floor of the mouth, is called as ranula, and ranula plunging through the mylohyoid muscle. Suprahead type, it is called as plunging ranula. The most common site of mucocele is the lower lip, and ranula is seen in the floor of the mouth, is associated with two glands, mainly submandibular and sublingual, and most of the times we do the treatment as marsupialization. Clear? It is the most common benign lesion of salivary glands. Okay, clear? I hope it's very, very important MCQ, and it's very, very important. Okay, coming on to mucus retention type. Okay, mucus retention type of cyst, again divide into true cyst. They are actually true cyst because they are having a partial or complete obstruction of the salivary duct. Okay, so there is a epithelial lining, because of that they are called as a true cyst, mucus retention cyst. And among major salivary glands, most of the times the mucus retention cyst is seen in the parotid gland. Okay, mucus extravasation type is mostly seen in the lower lip area. Mucocele is mostly seen in the lower lip area, whereas mucus retention kind is mostly seen in the parotid gland. Among the major salivary glands, it is seen in the parotid gland region. Okay, understood. And that this can be the lining epithelium of the mucus retention cyst can undergo oncocytic metaplasia. It can transform into different lesions. It can transform into a true mucus retention cyst, secondly reactive oncocytoid cyst, okay, in elderly patients, okay, and lastly mucopapillary cyst also it can undergo. Okay, so this is the lining epithelium can undergo all these oncocytic metaplasias. So that is not so important, but remember all these points because they can ask from anywhere. Coming on to the next kind, that is antral cyst. Okay, antral cyst is again two types: retention cyst of maxillary sinus, and second type a surgically ciliated cyst of the maxilla or surgical cyst. So the first one is due to the blockage of duct or obstruction of the sinus opening. There could be some because of there is blockage in the duct, there could be some retention of the sinus. Okay, and there can be another important variety, that is antral pseudocyst. Antral pseudocyst is not true cyst. It is because of accumulation of inflammatory exudate under the maxillary sinus lining, and this causes the elevation of sinus opening, and it is mostly dome shaped. Okay, so antral pseudocysts are commonly asked in MCQs. So they are due to the accumulation of inflammatory exudates. Okay, it is not due to blockage in the obstruction of sinus. They are true cyst. But in case of pseudocyst, it is due to inflammatory exudate. Okay, remember that point, inflammatory exudate under the maxillary sinus lining, and this causes the elevation of sinus opening, sinus floor. Okay, and second variety of antral cyst is surgical ciliated cyst of maxilla or surgical cyst. This is actually some kind of iatrogenic type. Okay, iatrogenic in the sense it is due to the trauma from the from that of or a accidental approach from that of the surgeon. Okay, so because as you know, when you use the Cardwell look operation, okay, the Cardwell look operation to remove the impacted canine, we use Cardwell look operation, isn't it? In surgery you have learned. So after Cardwell look operation or damage to the floor of the sinus due to the complicated extraction of the upper tooth, in that particular case there could be some implantation of the epithelium in that particular area, and development of the cyst from this epithelium results. Okay, this finally results in surgical ciliated cyst of maxilla or surgical cyst. Okay, and surgical ciliated, from that term itself it's very clear, it is after, most of the times after Cardwell look procedure or damage to the floor of the sinus, and they are lined by pseudostratified ciliated column epithelium, okay, which is identical with that of the maxillary sinus. That is how you can make out. Okay, clear? So these are the two types of antral cyst, the one which is seen related to the sinus floor. Okay, in that antral pseudocyst is very important because it is due to the inflammatory exudate. Coming on to next important MCQ, that is pseudocyst. They commonly ask you what is pseudocyst. Which are the pseudocysts? The pseudocysts are three. Mainly you have to remember three pseudocysts. One is traumatic bone cyst, secondly aneurysmal bone cyst, and three is Staphylococcus cyst. The three pseudocysts commonly seen are these three. Okay, so how will you remember these 3 points? Remember as pseudo twins. Okay, so that is a mnemonic. Okay, pseudocyst I keep it as pseudo twins. Okay, so I remember that way. So pseudo twins, from that twins you should take out the words T, N and S. Okay, so T stands for traumatic bone cyst, N stands for aneurysmal bone cyst and S stands for Staphney cyst. So what is this? So remember as twins. Okay, in the W and I are silent. So what is the similarity and what is the difference between those two babies in that picture? Those two babies are identical. Okay, they are identical twins, but only difference is the baby with the pink color dress is having a band on her head, isn't it? So she is having a band on her head. So that band you think as epithelium. So that is the difference between a true cyst and a pseudocyst. A true cyst will be having a band and a pseudocyst will not having a band. Okay, so that epithelium, there is no epithelium covering for this kind of cyst. The three cyst important ones are traumatic bone cyst, aneurysmal bone cyst and Staphney cyst. Remember that way. Okay, pseudo twins you remember. Clear? Understood? So T stands for traumatic bone cyst, aneurysmal cyst and Staphney cyst. These three are the pseudocyst. So coming on to the first pseudocyst, that is traumatic bone cyst. So as I told you, traumatic bone cyst does not have a epithelial lining. Okay, so why this happens? The traumatic cyst, as the term implies, it is due to some kind of trauma. So suppose a person or a young female or a young male, he encounters with that of some kind of accident. He receives a punch on his face, okay, in that mandible area. He encountered with a trauma, but there could be some formation of the hemorrhage and clot formation, and this clot breaks down, and when the clot breaks down in that area, there is an empty cavity formation. So that is the form, and there is no epithelial lining for this particular cavity. Okay, so that is the reason why you have a traumatic bone cyst. Okay, and most of the times it is seen in young people. Okay, young people, because they usually encounter with trauma. And what is the identical feature? If the surgeon cuts open this particular cavity and sees during the surgery, the cavity will be empty. Okay, there will be nothing within the cavity. So the surgical opening of the cavity, there is nothing left, or it's an empty cavity most of the times. So radiographically it's shown as a radiolucency, but as the surgeon cut opens, there is nothing left in it. Okay, there is nothing, it's an empty cavity. So most of the times it is seen in the mandibular, premolar and molar area, common site, the site where you can usually have the trauma. Okay, so traumatic bone cyst, it is otherwise known as solitary bone cyst or unicameral bone cyst or a simple bone cyst. These are the other terms of traumatic bone cyst. You should remember all these terms because they can give you any term in the MCQ options. So remember all this. It is called as simple bone cyst because it does not have anything within it. Okay, the cavity is entirely empty. There is nothing. What is the reason behind of the the occurrence of traumatic bone cyst? There happened a trauma. Okay, as a result of trauma, there was a hemorrhage, there is a bleeding, and there was a clot formation. As the clot breaks down, there is an empty cavity left in that particular area. Okay, this results in the traumatic bone cyst. There is no epithelial lining for it. That is why it is called as a pseudocyst. Clear? Now coming on to next important one, that is aneurysmal bone cyst. Aneurysmal bone cyst is also a pseudocyst. I told you, remember T, N and S in twins. Okay, so N stands for aneurysmal bone cyst. So what is the difference between a traumatic bone cyst and a aneurysmal bone cyst? In case of aneurysmal bone cyst, it will be bleeding. As the surgeon cuts open the cavity, as he encounters, it will be full of blood. Okay, so there will be extreme bleeding you can see in this particular case. So that is why I have given that cartoon in that particular picture next to that radiograph. Oh God, I remember this. Why is it all bloody? Because it's ABC. Okay, because it's ABC, aneurysmal bone cyst, ABC. Okay, so ABC aneurysmal bone cyst is full of blood. It appears like a blood soaked sponge. Okay, the cyst, when you cut open, it looks like it is having full of blood which is soaked in a sponge. Clear? So pseudocyst, and it was first described by Jaffe and Linkstein and mostly seen in young people below 20 years, and excessive bleeding on surgical entering of the lesion is the main feature of aneurysmal bone cyst. Okay, and there are 4 phases of the lesion. Okay, the reason for aneurysmal bone cyst is also trauma only. As the trauma there are 4 phases. Okay, initially in that particular area there is osteolytic, there is bone resorption. Secondly, there is active growth phase. Okay, there is blood formation, the blood capillaries, and coming to that particular area there is active bone formation. Thirdly, you have the maturing stage, okay, and finally you have the healing phase, okay. Because there is immense blood supply in that area, because of these stages you see a bloody appearance. As the surgeon cut open, you see a blood soaked sponge appearance because of this reason, because there is a healing occurring within the cavity. That is why you have a blood soaked sponge appearance. Clear? So that is a major difference between traumatic bone cyst and aneurysmal bone cyst. In case of a traumatic bone cyst, if the surgeon cut open and reaches the cavity, it will be fully empty. Whereas in case of a ABC aneurysmal bone cyst, if the surgeon cut open, he will be feeling as if he have encountered with a blood soaked sponge. Okay, it will be fully bloody. Okay, that area will be fully bloody. Clear? So remember all these points. And radiographically, how does it appear? As I told you, the lesion is first osteolytic and then it becomes bone formation happens. Okay, so initially, so the radiographically it appears like a soap bubble appearance. Okay, so soap bubble appearance is seen in two particular lesions, one in ABC and one in giant cell granuloma. Okay, so remember these 2 points. Giant cell tumor also shows soap bubble appearance, aneurysmal bone cyst also shows soap bubble appearance. Clear? So remember these points, very very important. Coming on to the last traumatic kind of inflammatory non-odontogenic cyst, that is Staphylococcus cyst. Okay, actually Staphylococcus cyst is an accidental finding. Okay, it is not seen routinely in the radiograph, means in the, as you take a radiograph for some other purpose, you will be accidentally finding this particular cyst. So it is appearing as a ovoid radiolucency. Okay, you look into the radiograph, it is usually seen as a ovoid radiolucency between the mandibular canal and the inferior border of the mandible. It is mostly seen in this particular area, and the location is always superior to the inferior alveolar canal. That is the characteristic radiographic feature of Staphylococcus cyst. It is mostly seen superior, above the inferior alveolar canal. Okay, and why does it happen? It because of some salivary gland tissue which was entrapped within the mandible during embryonic development. Okay, so there was development of the salivary gland. During the development, embryonic development, the some portion of salivary gland happened to be entrapped within the bone, okay, mandible. Because of that, the Staphylococcus, the radiolucency appearance you can see in the radiograph. Okay, and it is mostly seen as a radiolucency above the inferior alveolar canal. Okay, mostly between mandibular canal and the inferior border of the mandible. Clear? Understood? And the differential diagnosis from the traumatic bone cyst. This is the how will you differentiate? Because same location only you will find the traumatic bone cyst also. But in case of traumatic bone cyst, as I told you, traumatic bone cyst, as you cut open, it will be an empty cavity. Then traumatic bone cyst, it is mostly seen. It can be seen anywhere. Okay, it need not be always, location need not be always superior to inferior alveolar canal in case of traumatic bone cyst. Okay, but in case of Staphylococcus cyst, it is always seen superior to the inferior alveolar canal. Okay, and it is otherwise known as developmental lingual submandibular salivary gland depression also. Okay, so it's a accidental finding most of the times. Coming on to the last variety, that is inflammatory kind of non-odontogenic type, in that due to some kind of infection you can have development of parasitic cyst. So there could be some resting stage or dormant stage of the microorganism which is resulting in this kind of parasitic cyst. Okay, and they are very rare in the oral facial region, and they are also without any epithelial outer covering, and the most common examples are only asked in MCQs. Hydatid cyst, cysticercosis cellulosis and trichinosis are the mostly seen parasitic cyst in the oral region. Okay, so with this we come to the end of this particular part 3 of odontogenic cyst. Okay, this particular chapter. So in this particular portion we dealt about non-odontogenic cyst mainly. So non-odontogenic cyst, we learned they are of 2 different types. Okay, developmental and inflammatory kind. Within developmental we learned about intraosseous and extraosseous. In that intraosseous variety we learned about nasopalatine cyst, median palatal, globulomaxillary cyst, median mandibular cyst. Then extraosseous we learned about the Epstein pearls, bone nodules, clefts cyst, okay, the other term of nasolabial cyst, thyroglossal duct cyst or lymphoepithelial cyst. Then we learned about few inflammatory non-odontogenic cyst. In that mucosal is very very important. Ranula, okay, plunging ranula. What is plunging ranula? Okay, then what is ranula? What is the treatment for it? Marsupialization. Then coming to the antral cyst, we learned about antral pseudocyst. Okay, mostly due to the inflammatory exudate. Okay, then what are the no epithelium? Pseudocyst, mostly found pseudocyst are traumatic bone cyst, aneurysmal bone cyst, and Staphylococcus cyst. So remember the mnemonic twins. Okay, then we learned about the important features differentiating between traumatic and ABC. Okay, if you cut open ABC, you will see a blood soaked sponge appearance, but in case of a traumatic bone cyst, it is purely empty. Okay, then we learned about Staphylococcus cyst. Staphylococcus cyst is due to the entrapment of the salivary gland tissue during the development of the mandible. Okay, so all these are important, so keep learning, guys. So now listen to part 4. Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot.